Hi everyone, Jessica from oakling.com here. I know I'm a little late on this one, but I did want to show you how I redid my interior door. Now, technically this is my front door to my apartment, but I do live like inside of the building, so it is technically an interior door. Now, my landlords are pretty awesome. I did do a mock-up, which I'll show you in the video, and I showed my landlord what my plan was, and they approved, and which was great because it came out really fun and I love it. And I need to quote my source because this lady did an awesome job. I went on Pinterest, I looked up doors because I was on the hunt for a redo, and so I came across this blog that was desertdomicile.com, and it's her September 13th, I believe. Oh, September 10th of 2013 post, and it's called the Navy Big Bang Theory inspired door. Now, if you're like my mom, you're thinking Big Bang Theory like planets colliding and stuff, but no, it's actually like the show, like the TV show Big Bang Theory. So I loved it. I loved what she did. I didn't intend to do it exactly as she did, as far as color wise, but when I got to the paint store, definitely was the color that popped out to me that I found love with. So here it is. I'll put her link below so that you can check out her blog post, because definitely if it wasn't for her I wouldn't have done this. But here's my before and after and my video. First thing you want to do is prep the door. So I am putting wood filler in. I think I'm using the Elmer's wood filler for this one, and let that dry. And then I followed it with sanding once it was dry with a 220 grit sandpaper just on the areas with the wood filler. Then with the 400 grit, I did the entire door just to clean it and give it to prep it properly. Then you want to follow it with a damp cloth, not a soaking wet one, and just clean off all the excess dirt. Next, I'm going to show you how I did my mock-up. This is actually what I showed my landlord to get approval, and I used mailing paper that I got from the Dollar Tree and just used blue tape to tape it on the door. I went 6 inches around, made a line 6 inches from each side, top and bottom, on the door. And then I went and made a 7-inch line top and bottom and all around the door. And these are the 2 lines that you're going to see. I taped a ruler or measuring tape so that I can mark where my dowels are going to be. That's going to be on the 7-inch line, not the 6-inch. So on the 7-inch line, I did go 4 1/16 all the way up in spacing. And you see here, I did make a few mistakes. I didn't like my spacing, so I crossed out the lines that I didn't like, and the dots there are on the 7-inch line. Now I'm going to go through with a pin or a marker, poke a hole through each of the dots and mark the actual door itself. And you do this all around the door. Once you're done, you're going to remove the mailing paper and make sure that all of your dots are visible so you don't have to try to figure out your math later again. I know it's actually hard to see on the video, the dots, but they will be visible to you. And you're going to just make a line 1 inch on top, bottom, just on the outside. This is going to recreate your 6-inch line, so everything will be even. And here's a little close-up. I line it up, the dots on the 1 inch, and then I mark my line with a pencil, and that's going to be my 6-inch. So the dots itself on the door are actually your 7-inch line. Your 6-inch line is going to be where you're going to glue and nail your trim down. So I ended up using Madison Mill Ink 1-inch dowel buttons. They're located where the dowels are. I also used Gorilla Glue wood glue and blue painter's tape. So what I'm doing here is just tearing off larger pieces of blue tape, one for each dot that I have on the door. This is going to help keep the dowel in place and from moving around. Now I'm just using a dab of the wood glue, and then with the applicator I spread it around the whole entire bottom of the button. Then I use the tape that I have already on the door so I don't have to rip it off as I'm going, and put it in a angled position so that the dowel wouldn't move left to right or fall down. By putting the tape on each button, this actually gave the glue time to dry so that the dowels wouldn't shift around. So from my experience, it takes about an hour before you can remove the tape, otherwise that happens, and it takes about a day to cure. Now with the wet, damp cloth, you want to go through and wipe off excess glue. It's just going to be way easier to do it now while the glue is still wet versus scraping it off when it is dry. So you see I had a few drips. You want to avoid those, and if you can't, then definitely the damp cloth as soon as possible. So I ended up finding the cheapest trim available, which was like a pine trim. I really had to hunt for a straight one that wasn't bowed. What I did was I just taped my measuring tape on there. I think mine was like 19 3/4 for the shortest distance. How I got that was you're going to measure on your door the 6-inch line, and the distance of that line is going to be the shortest points on your pine. So you will have, if you cut it at a 45-degree angle and you have like a 1-inch pine, then you're going to end up with a larger distance on the tip of that 45-degree angle, okay? So what I'm doing here is I just took off all the tape from the dowels and I'm using that to hold it in place. I didn't glue anything down until now, and I just wanted to see the mock-up how the pieces fit together. So now same thing, I'm applying the glue and spreading it around with the applicator tip. I did work, however, the top, as you see here, then I did the bottom, and then I did the 2 center ones for my door. That gave it time to dry and set so it wouldn't move around as I'm trying to lock in the sides. And I did use more tape, so you don't want this thing shifting around on you. You want it to stay in place. So I used the tape, and then I went through and cleared off any excess glue because it's easier to do it now than later. And then after those had time to set for a little bit, I went ahead and did the sides the exact same way and used a bunch of tape to hold those in place. And no, my corners didn't match up. After I had everything glued, I went ahead and put some little trim nails in. I don't know exactly what size these were because I just kind of found them in the junk drawer. They worked out pretty good, except that first one, if you can see, I did split the wood there. It is a cheap pine, and when you get too close to the edges, it does happen. I did use an inset to make sure that the nails were in the wood so I can cover them with wood filler. As far as that crack, I will show you how I covered that up the same way that I'm going to cover up the corners. So for my beautiful corners, I first scraped off any excess glue that I had on there, and then I am going to use the Elmer's wood filler to make these puppies beautiful and sharp. So what you want to do is just fill in that corner, fill in the whole thing right there with wood filler. Don't forget to cover up all of your inset nails that you just put in now. I guess I should tell you that I put in about 3 or 4 on each of the trim just to hold it in place, okay? You don't have to be too beautiful on this. A little tip is I did try to make the inside corner a little bit nicer since it was harder for me to reach it with that button in the way. But just fill it, let it dry, make sure that the whole thing has time to dry. So the wood filler probably took me a few hours to let dry because it was a lot of filler in there. Then I went through with about, I think, an 80 to scrape off real quick all of that top part, and then I followed it with about a 180, and I started to shape it. And that's what you do, is just keep sanding and shaping so that it mimics a beautiful corner. Don't forget to follow with a damp cloth to wipe off all the sanding you've just done. Now it's time to make it beautiful. First coat is always so hideous. The wood is going to be soaking up any of this paint, so don't get too worried. I did use the Valspar signature. I had it made in a custom blue paint, so I don't even know what the name of it is. I used just a paint brush, a small one to get in between the dowel and make sure everything's covered. So your first coat, you definitely want to make sure everything gets coated. It won't look beautiful, as you can see here, so don't worry about it. Just make sure you're covering it with the blue or whatever color you decide to use. And then for the larger panel pieces, you can definitely just go through with a larger paintbrush. For my door, it actually was an old door, so the paint did soak up a lot. I ended up putting 3 coats on here, and I think that was not because of the paint, more because of the door itself. So definitely, if you're doing an old door as old as the one I'm working on, keep that into consideration. By the way, the finish on the paint is eggshell. So I didn't mention that on the floor I do have newspaper on the floor so the paint doesn't drip on there. And I also forgot to tape off anything that I didn't want painted, like that. I didn't paint where the door seal, the side that would touch the door seal. It's really tricky. You would have to look into doing it properly because it tends to stick, or the paint will eventually come off because that's what's rubbing, that's what's meeting together. So if you can leave it not painted, I would. If not, then good luck. After I completed 3 hefty coats of paint, I did want to give my door more protection, so I poured some polyacrylic in a tub and coated the door with it. And here's the before, all old and not so glamorous, and here's after. It really is nice, you guys, to like come home to this door that you did. The corners look nice, and it's just fun. So, God bless, and I'll see you later. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Okay? Bye-bye.